In this tutorial, I'm going to cover snaps and pivots. Okay, so I'm going to get a polygon cube just by grabbing one off the excuse me, the shelf, and I'll frame this. Select F to frame it. Okay, so by default the center of the object should be pretty much dead nuts, and I can tell by turning on the move tool. The hotkey is W, and whether I rotate, scale, or move, it'll go from that point. If in the case we wanted to make, for example, a door, so I'm going to make this a more flat object, and then I want to obviously rotate from one side or the other. So let me take a moment to step aside, and if you haven't already discovered, the most helpful part of Maya is the F1 key or help. And the trick is to learn how to use the help, right, or F1 key. So here, for example, I elected to go into the search and I typed the word center, or I could have just put the word pivot in there, and it came up with change the pivot, and there's a nice description that comes along with some visuals that help to show some things true about pivots, what you can scale and how it moves away from the pivot point when scaling, so it increases the size that way, or rotating, it's the pivot point, right? Okay, the next would be the change the pivot. Okay, and how do you what is the key to changing the pivot? And notice at the bottom here it says keep the pivot in place while working. Press the insert or home key. So on the your Windows-based computer it'll be insert key, and on your Mac it'll be the home key. And those are over by the number pad. Over to the right of the keyboard you'll find the home key, and again the insert key. Okay, so I've got my cube now flattened to be a door, and I currently have scale on, and it doesn't matter what you've got on when you hit the insert key, because it'll turn into the pivot, the center, and then you can click and drag and you can move it to wherever you like, but this isn't really what we're going to want to get. So I'm going to Z that, and I'm going to point out at the top here where we have our different pivot points, to grid, to curve, to point, to plane, and make object active. So what I'm going to use is the point or vertex, and the hotkey is if I hit the V on the keyboard and hold it, it'll turn it on temporarily. So now if I move this, it'll snap to the nearest point. And again, that may not be what you want. So I'm going to hit the Z key, and instead of V and grabbing the center and it snaps right on a point, I'm going to grab the axis on which I want to move the point, and notice how it snaps and kind of hits this as a plane, right? So the insert key will take me back out, which I was in scale, so I'm going to hit the E key for rotate. Oops. I want to grab just the one plane to rotate my door on. Got it? Let's say we wanted, I'm going to hit the insert key, we wanted this to come up on the ground plane here. I'm going to hit the V key, and again, just to push this so that it's in the center of those points, back out, and then the W key, and I'm going to hold down the X, which is the hot key, to snap to grid. Now when I pull this, notice how it snaps right to the ground floor, but to the grid plane. So it's now going to orbit right around there, and also if I scale, it works off that pivot point. So the other snaps work similar, so play with them as well. So hopefully that gets you started and able to move pivots and snap points.